Gonzaga Nation SI looks through the bracket a little bit more as it has been revealed on Selection Sunday. I'm going to give you my Final Four picks. I'm going to give you a couple possible upset picks, and these might be possible upset picks based on the seeding, not necessarily what I've seen from either one of these teams. But if you look at just seed lines, is they would be considered upsets. So first off, everybody really kind of gets excited, obviously, about the four number one seeds. You got Gonzaga as the number one overall. You've got Arizona, you've got Baylor, and you've got Kansas. I can't argue with any of these one seeds. But the one thing that becomes fun and fascinating is looking at who some of the twos and the three seeds are, and could those teams have been good enough to deserve a one seed? I mean, you look at Duke as a two, you look at Kentucky as a two, you look at Villanova as a two, and Auburn as a two. Those all had opportunities had they won their conference tournament. You look at a couple threes in there that look really good to me. As well as Wisconsin, as well as Tennessee, are a couple three seeds that really I think could do some damage in the NCAA tournament. There's a lot of really good intrigue and some really good early first round matchups, and there's some really good potential second round matchups that I think are going to be fascinating to kind of dive into with the prep and kind of pinpointing a few things to look at throughout this tournament. And that's something that we're going to do on Gonzaga Nation SI. We're going to look at not just Gonzaga's opponents, but also some of the other games that are catching our eyes here at Gonzaga Nation SI. So to get started, I'm going to give my Final Four picks. And this is basically just off of my first look at the bracket as it came out about an hour ago or so, looking at how each bracket kind of breaks out, shakes out. Now, if you take these picks and hold me to them in 48 hours, they may have changed. I'm going to do my best to keep these solid and consistent throughout. But here you go. Here is my choice and my pick for a Final Four. In the South region, I think Arizona as the one seed is going to come out of that region. I really like Villanova. I think Jay Wright is one of the best coaches. He was inducted to the Basketball Hall of Fame this fall. I still think at times he's underrated as a coach, and that's unbelievable to say that and think that. But I think they've got a chance to make a deep NCAA tournament run. I really like Tennessee. Tennessee has a nice blend, a nice mix of being great on the defensive end, can score it well enough. Had they won the SEC tournament title, I think you would have been looking at a one seed. That being said, they weren't quite able to get it done. But, I mean, the way that they're playing throughout this last stretch of the season, they've got good size, they've got length, they've got the athleticism, they've got a good guard in Kennedy Chandler. I think they could have a chance to make a deep run. But that being said, I am going to stay with Arizona as the one seed coming out of the South region. In the Midwest region, this one gets a little bit harder, because I look at the one seed of being Kansas, the two seed is Auburn. I mean, you really could have flip-flopped those in my estimation, in my opinion. Auburn was really good. Kansas, Ogbaji, I think, is a great player. Lightfoot has been playing really well as of late. Point guard play, they've got experience, even though he hasn't had a tremendous scoring season. The transfer from Arizona State, Remy Martin, but he's good. He's talented. He's a really good player. But Kansas has always, to me, kind of been that one kind of team that they're good, but I just can't put my stamp of approval of putting them in a Final Four. So I'm actually going to pick the three seed in the Midwest region, Wisconsin, to make it to the Final Four. Last year, I was very critical of the Big Ten. The Big Ten struggled. I've been critical of the Big Ten again this year. They've got 9 teams in the NCAA tournament. I think that's too many. I think the SEC also has 9 teams, if my quick memory serves me right, which I think is too many. But when you look at Wisconsin, they've got National Player of the Year type candidate in Johnny Davis. They've got size, and I think this is the year. I think that they can make that deep run. They can get to a Final Four. Um, so that's my pick to come out of the Midwest. Out of the East, this is where it gets a little bit more difficult. This is where it absolutely gets more difficult. Baylor is your 1 seed, right? You've got a number of other really good teams. Kentucky is your 2 seed. You've got UCLA as a 4 seed, even though they have not played great this, in my estimation, down the stretch. Purdue is a 3. They're a tremendous offensive team, but on the defensive end, I don't think they give you enough to really consider them or deem them Final Four worthy. So I am going to take Kentucky as the 2 seed advancing to the Final Four. I think when you look at their guard play, I think Xavier Wheeler, you know, maybe a little bit undersized, but he's a tremendous talent. He doesn't back down from a challenge. He can score. He can make plays for others. And then you've got National Player of the Year candidate and All-American Oscar Tshiebwe. When you're averaging around 18 points and about 15 rebounds, you are going to be the focal point of any team's scouting report. And he's done it throughout the season. He's put together a tremendously successful season. So I see Kentucky advancing in that East region, which is, again, it's good. I mean, Baylor's tough. You've got St. Mary's, another WCC team in there as a 5 seed. UCLA out of the Pac-12. Purdue, a good scoring team. USF as well out of the WCC. But for me, I've got Kentucky coming out of that East region, and which leads me now to the West. I'm going to be short and I'm going to be sweet on this. Yes, the West is a loaded bracket. You've got Duke as your 2 seed, Arkansas as a 4, Texas Tech, actually, excuse me, as a 3, Alabama as a 6, Michigan State as a 7. If you look at that, Gonzaga has played 3 of those teams. They played Duke, Texas Tech, and Alabama in the non-conference. 2 of their 3 losses have come from those teams that I mentioned. Possibly sets up a Duke Gonzaga regional final, which would be a 1 versus 2 seed. Gonzaga lost to Duke earlier this year. That would be a tremendous story if you see that happen, with a chance for Gonzaga to advance to another Final Four and win a national title in Coach K's last season. I think it would almost be a passing of the mantle from Coach K as the face of college basketball to what's looking like, in my estimation, Coach Few is becoming a face of college basketball, because there's a lot of similarities between the size of school with Gonzaga and Duke, and how they've done things consistently for so long, with the way they play, with the culture of the program, and with the leadership as the head coach. So those are my Final Four picks: Gonzaga, Arizona, Wisconsin, and Kentucky. I'm going to give you now 4 first-round upsets that I think are going to happen. And as you're filling your bracket out, take a look. Almost every year you see a 12 beat a 5. Most years you see a 13 beat a 4. And then anytime an 11 knocks off a 6, it's really not that big of an upset. But when you look at seed lines, there's a reason that they are slotted the way they are. Maybe they're not as consistent. Maybe they struggled on the road. Maybe they limped in to the postseason and didn't get things done in their conference tournament the way they had expected. But the 4 upsets that I'm looking at right here, I like in a 4-13 game, I like South Dakota State over Providence. I know the Big East was good this year, but every time I watched Providence, I didn't get that. They didn't have the it factor to me. Now, I probably didn't watch them as much as a lot of national analysts, but anytime that I saw South Dakota State deep in this kind of conference tournament part of the season, I was impressed. They were undefeated in the Summit League, which is a very skilled league. It's tough to go on the road and win in that league. Then they won their conference tournament title, South Dakota State. So I've got them as a 13 seed knocking off a number 4 seed Providence from a bigger conference, the Big East. My second upset, I'm going to stay kind of in that section of the country, in the Midwest area. I'm going to have a 3 seed getting knocked off by a 14 seed. Yes, that's right. I've got Chattanooga over Illinois. I was very hesitant on the Big Ten last year. I already mentioned I wasn't sold on the Big Ten again this year. Illinois lost early in the tournament last year, but I've got Chattanooga over Illinois. There's, yeah, Kofi Cockburn, very good player, but the rest of their guards don't really get me overly excited. You see a Chattanooga team, I believe they've got 28, 29 wins on the season. So they've got some experience. They are battle tested. They know how to win. And so I've got Chattanooga over Illinois. In my third upset, I've got another Big Ten team going down. I don't want to sound like a Big Ten uh, uh, hater, but it's just kind of the way some of these brackets and these matchups are looking to me. This one wouldn't be as big of an upset. This is a 10 seed, Loyola Chicago knocking off Ohio State as a 7 seed. Now, if you look closely and remember how the season was breaking out, Loyola Chicago was ranked earlier this season. They got off to a tremendous start. They were in the Missouri Valley Conference. They started battling a few injuries. They started battling just the grind of a conference regular season where you're going on the road against rivals. You are having to perform, and they lost a few close games that maybe outsiders thought were givens. But anybody knows how good the Missouri Valley Conference is, knows that those aren't games that are just given. They're not gimmies. I really think they got a tremendous young head coach in Drew Valentine, and they've got a culture that's been built. And I know culture is a buzzword right now in sports, but Porter Moser got them to the Elite Eight a season ago. I think right now, if you look at everything and how it's going, they lost some guys, Cameron Cutwig, but they kept guys who came back for an extra season, and those guys haven't missed a beat. I think they're a tremendous team. Braden Morris at the point guard. Williamson is a tremendous wing who can really lock people up defensively as anybody in the country. So that's an upset pick that I have. Loyola Chicago over Ohio State. And in my fourth upset, it would be an upset based on seeding, but I don't think it would be an upset if you look at how this team is playing. And I've got an 11 seed Virginia Tech, the Hokies knocking off the Longhorns, Texas, a 6 seed. Virginia Tech wasn't going to be in the NCAA tournament unless they won the ACC tournament title in Brooklyn. You can just tell that by the way they're slotted in the tournament as the 11th seed. A lot of people thought they were on the bubble. They basically, when you see this as an 11 seed of winning a major conference tournament like the ACC, had they lost in the semis, there was no way. Had they lost in the title game, they probably still wouldn't have made the NCAA tournament, seeing that they were so undervalued and what may be seen as an underseed as an 11. That being said, they're playing tremendous basketball right now. They've got some guys that are playing with a ton of confidence. Their point guard, Storm Murphy, has really shown that he can kind of create and control the tempo of a game. The shooter name is escaping me, but he was absolutely on fire on Saturday night. Man, I'm drawing a blank on the name, but he really was knocking it down from three. He's going to be a fun tandem with Murphy to watch in that first round. So those are my 4 upset picks. I've got South Dakota State over Providence, Chattanooga over Illinois. I've got Loyola Chicago over Ohio State, and Virginia Tech over Texas. So for Gonzaga Nation SI, don't forget to follow us on all social media channels, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, you name it, we're on there. We're bringing you lots of content throughout this NCAA tournament run by Gonzaga.